there's a difference between these strings, and it's not color. Now, many people want to get into making bowstrings thinking, man, I really want to make this awesome red bowstring. And we go online, and then you see this.
What the heck is all this? What's BCY? What's Dyneema? How much do I need? What's the difference?
It really isn't as simple as just picking a color. And with so many options, it's really confusing. As with most things, people will point out that which material you use is a matter of preference. But if you've never made a bowstring before, it's really hard to be selective. Don't worry, this video will cover the basics of string material. Firstly, let's go over why there are so many different choices. Now, strings traditionally were made from natural fibers. Modern strings are made from synthetic materials. You'll see names like Dacron, Vectron, Spectra, Dyneema, and a few others. And a particular string may be made from a blend of two different materials. Now, each material has particular properties which suit different bows. One of the major properties is elasticity. Now, there are a couple of terms which come with this. Creep is used to describe the permanent stretching of a string, and this is generally undesirable. Modern strings are designed so that there is minimal creep. Another term used is stretch, and that's the amount of stretch the string has when it's actually being used. And depending on what bow you're using, this may or may not be desirable. Compound bowstrings are made so that they don't stretch while being used, while recurve bows actually need a bit of stretch so that there's less stress on the limb tips. This is especially true for traditional bows. Another property to consider is speed and weight. Compound bows will use stronger, more durable materials with more strands, whereas recurve strings are made from lighter, faster materials. Again, traditional recurve bows aren't made from modern strings and need to use something slower and stretchier. Since we've already mentioned a few times, older traditional bows will commonly use Dacron. I've got a couple of spools of Dacron here. What makes Dacron really appealing is that it's quite stretchy. This is a good thing for the older recurves because they're not made to handle the speeds of modern strings. This can cause limb tip damage or damage to the strings themselves. Additionally, it's a very cheap material, and if you're looking at practicing making bowstrings, Dacron is by far the best choice because a spool of Dacron may only cost around $15, and you can make a dozen strings. Very good for practice. I wouldn't really use expensive materials for your first bowstrings. Dacron used to be the go-to material for all recurve bows. But with the advent of modern materials, composite layers, such as fiberglass and carbon, these bows are made to handle the speed of newer, lighter materials. Of course, modern bows can use a Dacron string. In fact, many packages that are made for beginners will provide a Dacron string with the bow. However, most people who use modern bows will move away from Dacron as soon as possible. Now, you'll come across a string material called Fast Flight. You hear this mentioned a few times in different guides and by veteran archers. It's actually a slightly confusing term because it's kind of outdated. Fast Flight refers specifically to Brownell Fast Flight, which is a product made by the Brownell company. But in modern usage, Fast Flight refers to basically any modern string. Now, the reason why Fast Flight became ubiquitous as a string name is because it was like the miracle material of the day. You had the slow, stretchy Dacron, and then you had Fast Flight, which is very light. It was less stretchy. It was superior in performance, and every archer began using Fast Flight. In fact, compound bows used to use Fast Flight until the non-stretch materials were created. You can still buy Fast Flight. It's probably out of vogue at the moment. There are other materials like Dyneema and Spectra and even Vectron, which are blends of Dyneema and Vectron, which are more popular. But you can still buy Fast Flight. But the term Fast Flight is used to describe most modern bowstrings, not just Fast Flight. But because this used to be industry standard, you still see the term Fast Flight compatible used to describe bows. The most common example is the ceramic sage. People love the sage. Apart from being so cheap and coming in high poundages, it is advertised as being fast flight compatible. And what that means is that it has reinforced limb tips so that you can get rid of the Dacron string it comes with and get a fast flight string. If your traditional bow, which is made from wood, does not have reinforced limb tips, excessive use of the modern faster materials can cause limb damage. Whereas the bows like the Sage do have reinforced tips and can handle that stress. Modern bows will never promote themselves as faster compatible because all modern bows can handle modern materials, so it's a given. Now that's out of the way, let's look at some recommendations. If you've been looking at bowstrings online and you've been confused, it's because there's no section for recurve strings or compound strings. The reason for this is that the string materials can in fact be used for both kinds of bows. Nonetheless, some strings are better suited for certain bows, while others are universal. If you're not sure, unfortunately the product pages on the site usually don't have a distinction, but you can check out the manufacturer's website for their recommendations. We'll cover Dacron first. As I said earlier, Dacron is used for older recurve bows. You'll come across brand names and products such as Brownell B50, BCY B55, and BCY B500. Just to make things really easy. If you're not sure if your traditional bow can use modern strings, go with Dacron or Dacron-like material. For modern recurves, you want a light, faster material. Now you can still get Brownell Fast Flight, which is made from Spectra, and other Spectra materials, such as BCY 652. Very popular choices today for modern recurves include Dyneema and Vectra blended strings, such as BCY Dynaflight 97, BCY 8125 and 8125G, Dyneema 02, Brownell D75, and Angel Majesty. Most of these strings are made from Dyneema and Vectran. The really subtle difference is how much percentage is used. Some have more Dyneema, some have more Vectran. So that's a very subtle choice, which for most of us, we can't really tell the difference unless we've shot a lot of strings. Compound shooters tend to go for BCY 452X or BCY Trophy. Some strings though are marketed towards both compound and recurve shooters, and they include strings like BCY X String, BCY 8190, and Angel Majesty, just to name a few. Just remember though that if you're making a compound bowstring, you need more strands than a recurve bowstring. So typically a recurve bowstring will use no more than 18 strands of any given material, whereas a compound bow will require 20 to 24 strands. And there are materials designed for crossbows, such as BCY Force 10, and they're made to withstand the powerful crossbow release. Whew, that was quite a lot to get through. Now, bear in mind, these recommendations are preferences. You can in fact make a string from any material. If you shoot enough strings, you will eventually get that experience and be able to pick out subtle differences in strings. But apart from Dacron only bows, there's really no wrong choice. What I've said based on recurve and compound shooter preferences is gained from researching through forums and trawling through posts, and it's basically what works for each person. If you have your own recommendations and your own preferences as to what works, please share them below in the comments. But wait, there's more. One of the reasons why there are so many different items on the string material page is because the materials come in different size spools. The standard sizes are 1 pound, quarter pound, and 1/8 pound. And you might be wondering, why are they measured in weight and not in length? The reason is, well, strings do weigh slightly differently, and they may be covered in wax. In a factory setting, it's easier for the factory to sort materials by weight rather than by length, and that's the reason why. Now, in terms of how many strings you can make from a spool, it really depends on several things. How long your string is and how many strands you use. As a very, very rough guideline, a 1/8 pound spool, like one of these, can make around 10 strings, so maybe 10 to 15, depending on how much you use. So use as a very rough guideline. By extension, a 1/4 pound spool can make around 20 strings, and a 1 pound spool can make over 30 strings. Obviously, the larger spools are more cost effective, but they do cost more. So if you're only making a few strings, get a smaller spool. But if you're making many strings, then you should get the larger spools. Wait, there's more. Colors. Now, this is actually the easy part. If you've already chosen a string material, if you're making a one-colored string, then you just pick a color. Black and white strings may be slightly cheaper, and by slightly, I mean by like $1. For the most part, strings cost the same regardless of their color. What you see is what you get. So if you buy a red string from the shop, you get a red bowstring. No surprises. If you're looking at making a multicolored string, you have a couple of options. Some materials are made with a blend of two different colors, such as orange, red, or blue, green. This spool of BCY trophy that I have is silver black. So you can see it's a silver thread with black splotches, and it's actually quite hard to see the contrast. This is the string I made using this material, and you can see that it's kind of like a splotchy pattern. Even if I twist it, it's not as clear as what you might think it is. So it looks pretty cool, but it doesn't have the stripy look that you might be looking for. If you're looking for the two-tone striped candy cane effect, you actually need to buy two different colored strings. That's double the cost. If you want to make a 3-color string, that's 3 colors. That can be a little costly for just one string, so think about that if you're making a string for yourself. Obviously, generally speaking, try to use the same materials for the colors. That way you get the same consistent performance for each strand. By the way, if you've ripped the packaging off and you're not sure what material it is, check the bottom of the spool. That's a lot of information. Hope you found this interesting and helpful. Stay tuned for more videos on string making. Thanks for watching. This is NUSensei, and I'll see you next time.